Hi there, I think I'm recording. Sorry, I've got a new computer. Everybody, hi, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer. How are you doing? I got a new Macintosh, so I'm learning how to do my YouTube videos here. So, hello. Sorry it's a few days late. I will be getting in the swing of things and making things more timely now that I know how to use this new computer. Okay, so some things to talk about for August 2014. August 2014, and all the interesting astrological events going on. Let's first talk about something that is still in the process of happening, because today's August 3rd as I'm doing this. Yesterday on the 2nd, we had Mercury and Jupiter, because Jupiter just went into Leo, yay. It's always nice when Jupiter goes into a sign. I did talk about that last month, but Jupiter is such the planet of abundance and, open energy, and just when it changes signs as a yay, fresh energy. Not that, it just left the sign of Cancer, went into Leo, not that Cancer's bad, Leo's good. It's just we're done with that cycle of Jupiter and Cancer now. We're moving into the Jupiter and Leo. So yay, fun. Okay, so Jupiter moves into Leo, and by the way, Jupiter will stay in the sign for a year, basically 12 months. So Jupiter just conjuncted Mercury, which is really, generally very nice. But just to say, it also squared Mars at the same time. So let's just talk about that. So the Mercury in Leo is very can be opinionated. It's very strong-willed, and so because Leo is a fire sign, like yes, this is what I want, this is who I am, and when with Mars in Scorpio. In general, with Mars is like, I want my way. Mars is that straight line, So Mars squaring that Mercury, Jupiter, it's like, these are my thoughts are going. Jupiter's expanding things. So Jupiter's expanding that Mercury about what I want and what my vision is. And the other person's like, no, this is my vision. Mars in Scorpio. And sometimes people can feel more, this is not like everything's bad with Mars and Scorpio, don't hear that, but that Mars and Scorpio can be suspicious of things, suspicious about people's intentions, about all those Scorpio themes, money, sexuality, trust. People can feel like, what's going on? And then, so when there's a lot of enthusiasm with the Mercury conjunct Jupiter, people can be saying, you're trying to introduce me, you're trying to manipulate me, it's going to be crash, these ideas can go up against each other. It's like, whoa, no, this is what I'm trying to say. So we need to have some patience over this weekend. And then also, basically, pretty much today too, the moon moves into Scorpio, so we got moon Mars. So it just was a little bit of a bumpy weekend, because that moon Mars makes it even more, the moon is more, my needs, and so it's like, conflicting needs and conflicting communication maybe. Now after that Mars moves out of there and moves on, there's still that sense that the Jupiter is in Leo, so is the Mercury, and it can just be very warm. So there can be actually a lot of, strangely, some healing in relationships where things get aired out. And even some things about the past with people, like especially in romantic relationships, people can feel old stuff about how they had been, people have been mistrustful with them and in the past, and that can come up and it can be healed and cleared. Like, wow, I didn't know you had that in your mind, or I'm sorry that happened to you. You can have deeper understanding about what's going on with someone when you are communicating with them, even if it's a work relationship or something that has to do with money. Like someone could say to you, if you're more gentle and not just like, this is my side of it, how that Leo could be, it's like, okay, what's going on with them? And they could relax enough to tell you what was the subconscious thing going on, that you were reminding them of something. And you say, wow, now I'm more compassionate with this person. I know how to approach them about some things. So there can be a lot of learning that goes on with that. Instead of just, duck and cover, which can be kind of what some people want to do with Mars stuff in general. It's like, oh God, people freaking out, getting angry. But it can be this great thing, because especially with Mars and Scorpio, Scorpio has a lot to do with those old wounds, coming up. So, yay, we're moving through that and learning and growing. Then let's move on to, sorry, I'm looking down here, trying to keep things a little bit more in order for you. Okay, let's talk about the full moon. That's going to be on the 10th, which is next Sunday. And again, we've got some interesting features here because, of course, the full moon is the sun and the moon opposing each other. No big news there. Sun in Leo, moon in Aquarius. But then Saturn gets in on the act. Saturn also in Scorpio, so more of the same theme. That Saturn comes in and squares the full moon. So generally on the full moon, people's emotions are kind of high because the sun's the ego, the moon is the needs, and then can be the clash, and the moon is also the emotion, so things get a lot of overexpansion there. Saturn is this feeling that people can have, again, this paranoia because it's in Scorpio. I'm not going to get my needs met, or people could seem shut down emotionally. You could feel like you're progressing along in relationships of whatever sort, romantic and financial, and then you're up against some sort of wall. And it's like, and especially if it's the same person you've been dealing with from here this weekend with the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction squaring Mars, and even squaring Mars and squaring the moon too. Say, what did I learn about that person? Is this another example of their kind of flashing back to the past? I need to work with them with some compassion or some tender footing or some good negotiating skills. Say, this is what's going on behind the scenes with this person. Or, what's going on behind the scenes with myself? What themes of loss and what triggers are coming up for me, So some journaling, some release work, forgiveness work can really help with that. And the thing is with these, like say with the full moon, it pushes things up to the surface so you can go, and grab it. That's interesting. Got it. Heal it. Instead of it's down here. So these Jupiter magnifies things. So the Mercury-Jupiter thing we're talking about this weekend, it's magnifying, and the full moon is magnifying too, swirling the pot. So we can use that to our advantage instead of just getting over emotional and pissed off and stuff and causing a fight or just thinking someone's a jerk. It's like, what's going on and what can or I'm a jerk or whatever you're into feeling. So there's that. Now what's also interesting is not only does the sun and moon square Saturn, but the planet Uranus, which is in Aries, will be trining positive flow of energy to the sun sign. So because they're fire, Leo and Aries. And then the Uranus also is what's called a sextile to the moon, fire and air. It's an easy flow of energy there. You think of the air feeds the fire, supports the fire. So that's also, a lot of creative things can come out of that. So that's even nicer. The Saturn feels so ugly, it's squaring the full moon, but that Uranus trine is like, again, that kind of a set of revelations that can come out of it. And even see it as, if you have a spiritual partner who's pretty open-minded, it's like Aries has that sense of camaraderie, like we're on the same team. And you say, what are you getting out of this? What am I getting out of this? What are we learning about each other? How are we advancing together forward, from here on out? And so that can be a positive way to look at that Uranus is in on the full moon. Okay, next piece is really nice. I like nice things. I have all my Libra planets. Okay, so the 18th, which is a week after the full moon, basically, on Monday, we've got Venus moving into Leo, and then Venus and Jupiter conjuncting in Leo. So nice. That's just a nice, wonderful warmth. Leo is so warm, and Venus conjuncting Jupiter. The only bad thing about that might be you might want to shop too much or something because Venus is money and Jupiter's like, sure, whatever. So I want to watch out for spending or for that type, but it's just a day thing, but that it's not like a big transit, but it's a nice feeling. It can really soothe over. So again, you're getting these 2 weekends where you're working on stuff with people. And again, romantic relationships, money stuff, work stuff, because that Venus conjuncting Jupiter can re-establish the trust you have between each other and feel like you're really putting the weapons down. If you've been, it's been a little hard with the energies of the previous 2 weeks that have come before it. It's like, we actually are on the same team. That can really help to feel that warmth toward that person you've been maybe struggling with, and even warmth towards yourself. You're not so bad, and you're working on stuff, and there's always stuff to work on. I always think about like, say Olympic ice skaters, like they're awesome, like they're training for the Olympics, they're incredible, but they have these coaches that push them. Like you watch the Olympics and these people are like incredible, and they've got that, the coach is on the other side of the ice skating thing, and you're not doing it right. And it's like, and the coach is pushing them because that coach knows they can do even better, even better. Not that they stink completely, but it's like, let's move this to another level. And seeing your spiritual growth is that, not like, well, life keeps pushing me and I stink and I'm the worst, and then I have these challenges and I'm still not good at this part of life or that part of relationships. It's like, well, the universe sees you as the Olympic skater that can go even bigger. Even when you're at the Olympics, the coach is still working on you. So don't see it like you're bottom of the barrel and you're the ice skater that's always falling on their butt at the community center. See that the universe is believing in you, that you're getting these lessons. So that's just a little aside. But where that came from was Leo being self-love. Saying, I'm all right, so that Venus conjunct Jupiter, be like, yeah, I'm doing great. I got more to grow, but I'm willing to grow, and I can just take a break and say, I'm awesome. And maybe, yeah, you do spend some money on yourself, but nothing crazy, if you don't have a budget for that. But doing something that's doting on yourself, and doting on people you love, around that middle of the month, you'll feel that desire to do that. Okay. Now, the next two things are kind of linked, going back a little bit from the Venus thing I was just talking about. On the 16th, this is really minor. We've got Moon opposed Mars, which kind of, again, can harken back, because this is the 16th, and then the Venus-Jupiter comes on the 18th, a few days later. So we've got a little thing here of Moon in Taurus opposing Mars in Scorpio. And I'm mentioning it, it's really just for the 16th or so, that weekend. Both of them have to do with money and stubbornness, and it's just watching out, like, when am I being stubborn, when am I not seeing it someone else's way? But there could be those arguments about money, and a lot of times with Taurus involved in that too, it has a lot to do with self-worth, and it might not be about money, it might be about, I don't know if this person values me, and again, that can be work or romantic relationships. But again, watching for those triggers. When you have oppositions, it's and again, stirring the pot. And maybe before you say anything or assume anything, because there's kind of a hair trigger kind of thing there, or even with not just anger but crying, or like immediate feelings like, whoa, what's the trigger? What's my theme I've been learning all month with that person or this part of myself? And again, another opportunity to pluck a fabulous lesson or whatever from that. So then you move into that Venus thing again. Now, on the 25th, we've got, I'm sorry I'm mentioning all these Mars things because it's like, well, they already got to talk about it. But the last one would be Mars is the 25th, so the following Monday after this Venus-Jupiter. We've got Mars conjuncting Saturn in Scorpio at 17 degrees, if you care or you know about that. So, and this is almost like a super duper completion. We were talking about Mars retrograde, because Mars and Saturn retrograded at the beginning of March, like both retrograded on March 1st. The Mars went forward first, and then the Saturn just did last month. But now with Mars and Saturn conjuncting, it's like a completion of themes even from, I was going to say this winter, because believe me, when I was living in Detroit, that was very winter. That beginning of March, like what's those themes going on? This can be even what August is trying to kind of complete these patterns. And again, because it's Scorpio, it's like about the trust and about all these things I've been talking about. So the Mars conjunct Saturn can be a completion of like, wow, like I really got this. So we really moved past this together as a, a couple or a unit of people or whatever. But Mars conjunct Saturn can be like you can just get tired, you can push yourself real hard, there can be a lot of self-critical thinking, and that's where it's important, maybe even when, throughout this month, keeping a journal about what you like about yourself or what you like about the other person, gratitude lists, and be able to read them at the end of the month and say, no, like this is, I'm completing this whole piece here. And there's a lot more, even more freedom to come after that Mars and Saturn pass each other. Well, Mars will pass the Saturn. So there even can be, if you've been thinking about some financial purchases or something, you can really feel like, yes, this is right, I've got the budget, this is sensible. So it's also a good time to make a move. There's not a lot of impulsiveness with that. There's more a sense of frustration, if anything, but that can be a good sense of prudence and then moving ahead carefully. But in relationships, sometimes it can be, that again, and it's like, oh, no, this is, wow, look at all I've learned about that person. And maybe you won't, what could be interesting with Mars and Saturn is you get the trigger, Mars, and then Saturn's there going, wow, I don't have to react to that. Like, I have detached from that trigger. And that could be like, yay, really cool. But not everybody's detaching from their triggers. So we get regular third-dimensional people we're involved with and interacting with, who could just feel, and say, oh, wow, they're not detached from their trigger. Let's give them some space. You know, that kind of thing. But yeah, because of that, Mars and Saturn being in Scorpio and doing what they're doing, it's a little bit bumpy, but that Leo, the warmth of that Leo, and remembering that self-love and the compassion for the others that are also struggling. People are struggling in their own way, and sometimes don't have as much tools as we have, and it's like, wow, you know? So that Leo can really help give that compassion. So anyhow, to leave you with, if you would like a session with me, alunamichaels.com, you can contact me. The other thing I want to say is that I, tomorrow, am starting my, that's August 4th, my monthly internet radio show on bodymindspiritradio.com. You can always go to that and see the archives or listen to the archives of the radio shows I'm doing. If you have any questions for me you'd like me to cover on the radio show, send me those questions and I can cover those, or certain topics you might want to know about. It's called Astrology for Your Soul, so I'm wanting to go in that deeper esoteric mode, spiritual growth and all that. So anyways, this might have been a little longer than usual today, but thanks for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with my new learning process here on the Mac, and I'll see you next month.